Okay, so get this, listeners. We've got this situation brewing, and it's potentially huge for crypto. We're talking a potential political earthquake.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and right in the middle of it all, this project called Pulse Zen. Like, it could be sitting right on the fault line, ready to erupt.
Okay. I'm intrigued. What have you found?
Well, we're diving deep into a couple of sources here. One is some breaking news about a lawsuit against the SEC, and the other is the official Pulse Zen website.
So we're going to try and see how these two seemingly separate things, a lawsuit and this Pulse Zen, could actually be connected.
Exactly. You ready to start digging?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Awesome. All right, so first up, this lawsuit. It's not just some, small-time legal challenge. This is big.
Yeah, this is serious stuff.
18 states are going head-to-head with the SEC, and they've teamed up with the DeFi Education Fund to do it.
18 states. Wow. Can you list them all?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So we've got Kentucky, Nebraska, Tennessee, West Virginia, Iowa, Texas, Mississippi.
Wow, already a lot of states in there.
Montana, Arkansas, Kansas, Missouri, Indiana, Utah, Louisiana, South Carolina, Oklahoma, and Florida.
That's quite a coalition. And you mentioned the DeFi Education Fund.
Right. They're a key player here.
They are.
So who are they and what's their stake in all of this?
So basically, they're a group. Their whole mission is promoting what's called decentralized finance, or DeFi. Think of them as like advocates for the whole crypto world, fighting for less regulation, more freedom to innovate.
So they're probably seeing this lawsuit as a way to protect the entire crypto industry.
Yeah, exactly. They believe the SEC has been too heavy-handed, especially under Gary Gensler.
Ah, okay, that makes sense. So what are the states actually claiming in the lawsuit? What's the gist of their argument?
Basically, they're saying that under Gensler's leadership, the SEC has been going after the crypto industry unfairly, like stifling innovation. They're saying it's creating an unlevel playing field.
Interesting.
And they're actually trying to get a court order to stop the SEC from making crypto platforms register as securities exchanges.
Whoa, hold on. That sounds huge. What would that even mean for crypto if they win?
Well, it could seriously weaken the SEC's control over the crypto market. Like, imagine a world where projects could operate with a lot less fear of the SEC, coming down on them. It'd be a whole different ballgame.
A whole different landscape.
Yeah.
It's pretty mind-blowing to think about.
Yeah.
So, speaking of shaking things up, where does Gary Gensler stand in all of this?
Well, to be honest, his position might be more precarious than ever.
I bet.
There's talk of him possibly resigning, And remember, President-elect Trump specifically said he'd fire Gensler if he got in. So the pressure is definitely on.
That's a lot of heat. Okay, so we've got a potential SEC leadership change possibly happening right alongside this huge lawsuit. It's like a 1-2 punch.
Absolutely.
And now into all of this, we've got Pulse Zen entering the ring.
Pulse Zen.
Yeah, their website, it describes it as a cryptocurrency. Pretty standard, right? But it's got this unique pay-it-forward system.
Pay it forward. That's interesting. What is that all about?
I know, right? So what it is every time somebody makes a transaction using Pulse Zen, 2% of that transaction gets redistributed to everyone else holding the token, the PZEN token.
So the more PZEN you have, the more you benefit from all the transactions happening on the network.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a built-in wealth-sharing mechanism. Pretty wild.
Yeah, very interesting.
And there's more. The website mentions other features like a burn function, anti-whale measures, even a charity wallet. What's the strategy there with all these features?
It seems like they're aiming for a system that's, both equitable and sustainable, right? So that burn function that gradually shrinks the total supply of PZEN, which in theory makes each existing token more valuable over time.
Ah, okay, so it's like a built-in scarcity mechanism.
Exactly. Yeah.
And what about these anti-whale measures? What are those about?
You can think of it as like protection against market manipulation. They're trying to stop those giant holders, those whales, from coming in and swinging the price around.
Oh, to protect the smaller investors.
Exactly.
And the charity wallet, what's that about? I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, it's a pretty unique feature. It automatically sends a portion of every transaction to some designated charity.
Wow.
So they've got this social good element baked right into how the currency works.
Interesting. So they're really positioning themselves differently than a lot of other crypto projects.
They are.
It's not just about, number go up, right? They're talking about wealth distribution, social responsibility. They even quote stuff like, there is no scarcity of wealth. We just need a better redistribution system.
Yeah, they're definitely tapping into this idea of like a more ethical, more inclusive financial system. It's a smart move for sure.
It is. And you mentioned earlier that Pulse Zen is available on both Ethereum and something called Pulse Chain.
Right.
Can you break that down for me? What's Pulse Chain?
Okay, so Pulse Chain is a fork of Ethereum. Basically, think of it like a copy of the Ethereum blockchain, but with some changes, some key differences. They're trying to be faster, cheaper to use than Ethereum. So having Pulse Zen on both platforms gives it more reach, makes it accessible to more people.
Makes sense. Okay, so just to kind of recap here for a second.
Mm.
We've got this potential upheaval with the SEC with this lawsuit, and then you've got this new player, this Pulse Zen, with its unique features. But how do these two seemingly separate things, how do they connect? Could a change at the top of the SEC, could that really impact a project like Pulse Zen?
That's the big question, isn't it? I mean, we're definitely getting into some speculation territory here.
Yeah.
But it is worth considering. Like, what's the potential domino effect here? Imagine the lawsuit succeeds, it limits the SEC's authority. That could open up a whole new world for these crypto projects, especially the ones that are, pushing the boundaries.
And Pulse Zen, with its pay it forward and this focus on social impact, sounds like could be in a really good position to benefit if that happened.
Potentially, yeah. A less aggressive SEC could give projects like Pulse Zen more room to breathe, more room to experiment and innovate without constantly, looking over their shoulder.
So we're talking about a scenario where a change in the political leadership could lead to these big regulatory changes.
Yeah.
And that creates like the ideal conditions for a project like Pulse Zen to just explode.
It's a fascinating idea, right? It's a thought experiment. But we got to remember we're dealing with a lot of what ifs. The lawsuit, who knows how that's going to go? The crypto market itself, it's notoriously unpredictable.
Right. And we don't know who the new SEC chair might be or what their views on crypto would be.
Exactly. There are a lot of unknowns.
But that's part of what makes all of this so interesting. There's so much potential here, so much potential for disruption, for innovation, maybe even a complete reshaping of the financial landscape.
Couldn't agree more. And that's why it's so important to have these conversations and analyze what's happening. I mean, we could be witnessing the early stages of a financial revolution here. It's crucial to understand how all these forces are at play.
Definitely.
It's kind of like watching a pressure cooker,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
You can see the heat building up, but you don't know when or how it's going to blow.
Exactly. And with all these moving parts, it's easy to get caught up in the excitement, start picturing all these best case scenarios. But we got to step back for a sec, I think. Remember, we're dealing with a lot of speculation here.
Right, of course. We're just exploring the connections, analyzing the information. We can't present this as, a guaranteed outcome.
Yeah, we're like detectives piecing together a puzzle. But at the end of the day, it's up to each individual listener to do their own research, come to their own conclusions.
Absolutely. We're providing a framework for understanding, not financial advice. We're not, making predictions.
Right, right. And it's crucial to remember that the crypto market, well, it's not exactly known for its stability. So even if this lawsuit goes the way of the crypto folks, even if the SEC kind of backs off, there's no guarantee that Pulse Zen or any cryptocurrency will suddenly become the next Bitcoin.
Very true. There are so many factors that can affect the price. Technology, global economics, just investor sentiment. It's complex.
Yeah. So while it's tempting to get caught up in all this, imagine Pulse Zen just taking off. We got to stay grounded, acknowledge the risks.
Absolutely. Prudence and a healthy dose of skepticism are essential in this space.
For sure. Okay, so with all those caveats in mind, let's get back to this connection between the lawsuit and Pulse Zen. I'm really interested in the timing of it all.
Oh, what do you mean?
Well, you've got this huge lawsuit, right, challenging the SEC. And at the same time, you've got Pulse Zen popping up with these unique features that seem, I don't know, almost tailor-made for a world where the SEC has less power. It's like they knew this was coming.
That's an interesting observation. It's possible that the people behind Pulse Zen saw this coming, designed it to capitalize on this kind of shift in the regulatory landscape.
And with Gary Gensler potentially on his way out, the timing couldn't be better. A new chair appointed by President Trump, that could be a whole new era for the SEC's approach to crypto.
Right. A new chair could be much more open to innovation. It could be a game changer.
Especially if the lawsuit succeeds.
Yeah.
It could be like the perfect storm for Pulse Zen.
Potentially. But again, we have to be realistic. There are always things we can't predict. The lawsuit could get thrown out, the new SEC chair could be just as tough as Gensler, or the market could just decide Pulse Zen isn't what it's all cracked up to be.
Right, right. But I think even just thinking about these possibilities is valuable. It helps us understand all the different forces at play and think critically about the future of finance.
I agree. These thought experiments, even if they're not predicting the future, they give us a deeper understanding.
Exactly. Okay, so let's indulge in a little more speculation. Let's say the lawsuit is successful, Gensler is out, and the SEC takes a much more hands-off approach. What could that mean for Pulse Zen? Like, concretely, how would it play out?
Well, one of the first things we might see is a boost in investor confidence, less uncertainty around regulations, and more people might be willing to invest in projects like Pulse Zen.
And that could lead to a higher demand for the PZEN token, which would drive up the price, right?
All right. Exactly, and with Pulse Zen's unique system, especially that redistribution mechanism, any price increase could get amplified.
Because as the token becomes more valuable, that 2% redistribution becomes a bigger and bigger deal, right?
Right, it's like a snowball effect. More demand, higher prices, bigger redistributions, even more investors. It's a loop.
It's fascinating. Of course, the opposite could also happen, right?
Of course.
If people think Pulse Zen is too risky or unsustainable, the price could crash, regardless of what the SEC is doing.
The crypto market can be fickle, for sure.
That's part of what makes it so exciting, though, right? High stakes, potential for big wins, but also big losses.
Definitely not for the faint of heart.
No. But that's why it's so important to have a balanced perspective. Be aware of the potential, but also the risks.
Absolutely. Informed decisions are key.
And that's what we're all about, right? Giving our listeners the knowledge and tools to navigate this world.
Exactly. We're not fortune tellers, but we can be guides, helping people make their own informed choices.
So we've talked about the lawsuit, the SEC, the potential impact on Pulse Zen. But let's bring it back to the individual, the listener, who's thinking, hey, this Pulse Zen thing sounds cool, but I don't know anything about crypto. What's the first step?
Do your research. Don't just jump into anything because it sounds exciting or someone said it was a sure thing. Learn about the technology, understand the risks, and figure out if it aligns with your own goals.
And don't be afraid to ask questions. The crypto community is full of passionate people who are happy to share their knowledge.
Find online forums, join Discord groups, even go to local meetups if you can.
Yeah, the more you learn, the better equipped you'll be to navigate this space.
Absolutely.
And remember, investing in crypto is risky. Don't invest more than you can afford to lose, and diversify your portfolio. Don't put everything into one project.
Great advice.
And it's important to remember, crypto is about more than just making money. It's about exploring new possibilities, challenging the system, maybe even building a better, fairer financial system.
Exactly. And projects like Pulse Zen, with their focus on redistribution and social impact, they're at the forefront of this movement. They're trying to create something that benefits everyone.
Right, it's like we're at a fork in the road. Do we stick with the traditional financial system, or do we embrace these new decentralized models that could benefit more people?
That's a question we all have to answer. There's no right or wrong answer, but it's an important conversation to have. The future of finance is being shaped now, and we're all part of it.
Okay, so we've really gone deep on this major lawsuit against the SEC, Pulse Zen, and its whole system, and of course all the political stuff swirling around. For our listeners who've stuck with us through this whole thing, what's like the one big takeaway?
I think the biggest takeaway is that, well, we're in a really transitional time. Finance, the old rules, they're being challenged, and all these new models are popping up, and honestly, nobody really knows what's going to happen. This lawsuit, it's just one piece of the puzzle, but the impact could be massive.
Yeah, and for someone who's just getting into crypto, it can be a little intimidating. So much information, so many different projects. It's hard to know where to even start.
It can be overwhelming, for sure, but it's also a super exciting time to be involved. We're literally seeing a paradigm shift right in front of us. It's a huge opportunity to learn, to adapt, and maybe even be a part of something that really changes things.
So for our listener who's, interested in all this, sees the potential of crypto, but maybe a little hesitant to jump in, what advice would you give them?
Well, first and foremost, don't just get caught up in the hype, right? Do your research, learn about the technology, learn about the risks, and think about whether a project really aligns with your values, your goals.
Yeah, there are so many resources out there. Read books, articles, join online communities. Don't be afraid to really dig in and learn.
Exactly. The more you know, the better decisions you can make.
And I think it's really important to remember that crypto, it's not just about making money. It's about so much more than that.
Right.
It's about exploring these new possibilities. It's about challenging how things have always been done. Maybe it's even about building a financial system that's more equitable, more decentralized.
Exactly. And projects like Pulse Zen, they're a great example of that, right? With their focus on redistribution and social impact, they're not just another speculative asset. They're trying to build something that benefits everyone.
It's like we're at a fork in the road, you know?
Yeah.
We can stick with the traditional financial system, or we can embrace these new decentralized models that have the potential to empower people and create a more inclusive economy.
And it's a decision everyone has to make for themselves. There's no right or wrong answer, but it's a conversation we all need to be having. The future finance is being built right now.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought. Imagine, just imagine, a world where decentralized finance really is the norm. A world where you have more control over your money, where it's easier to get involved, and where wealth is shared more fairly. Is that the world we want? And if so, what role can projects like Pulse Zen play in getting us there? I guess that's something for everyone to think about as we move forward. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. It's been a fascinating conversation, and I'm sure this is just the beginning. We'll see you next time.
Absolutely. There's so much more to explore.